Chapter 217. The following day when Roxanne woke up, she realized it was almost 7:30. Immediately, she got out of bed and washed up, without having time to eat breakfast. She hurriedly brought the kids to the kindergarten, as Lisa was only in charge of picking the kids up. It was Roxanne's job to send them to the kindergarten on the way to work. In order to avoid Lucian, Roxanne had been leaving the house very early in the past few days. However, she could not wake up that day because she had worked late the night before. Thus, Roxanne spent her whole journey praying she could avoid seeing Lucian. However, things did not go her way. When she got out of the car, a Bentley with a familiar-looking number plate stopped behind her car. A moment later, Lucian brought Estella out of the car. Roxanne could not help but quicken her pace, wanting to send the kids inside the kindergarten as soon as possible and leave unnoticed. "Good morning, Miss Jarvis." Pippa greeted her warmly. Upon hearing that, Roxanne's heart sank as she stopped in her tracks. Meanwhile, Lucian had already recognized the Mercedes-Benz in front of him when he got out of the car. When he looked over, he saw the figure of a woman leading two kids away. It was obvious that the three were in a hurry. Thus, one would not believe it if Roxanne argued that she was not trying to avoid Lucian while standing hand in hand with her father. Estella's eyes drooped as she stared at the ground. It looks like I won't be seeing Miss Jarvis today either. Thus, when she heard the teacher's words, her eyes lit up as she immediately looked toward the kindergarten entrance. Miss Jarvis. Lucian had come up with all sorts of ways to make talk that day, yet all it took was one look at Roxanne for Estella to yelp excitedly, furrowing his eyebrows mysteriously. Lucian loosened his grip on Estella's hand and allowed her to run over to Roxanne. Roxanne had stiffened upon hearing Estella's voice and turned around a moment later, tilting her head to look up at Roxanne. Estella hugged onto her thigh, her eyes filled with excitement. "You're here, Essie?" Roxanne's heart softened when she saw Estella's face. Then, Roxana squatted down to pat little girl's head. Estella nodded with a smile before slowly asking, "Miss Jarvis, why didn't you pick Archie and Benny up from the kindergarten?" After saying that, she put up her fingers and added coquettishly, "For days. I miss you a lot." Upon hearing that, Roxanne's gaze softened as she struggled for an answer. Although Roxanne knew Estella would be anxious if she did not see her, she also needed to avoid Lucian. Thus, Roxanne had no choice but to do so. When Roxanne saw how upset Estella was, she felt guilty. After staying silent for a moment, she forced an excuse. "I miss you too. I've been busy with work lately, so I don't have the time to pick them up from kindergarten. Don't worry, you will soon see me every day after I finish my work." After saying that, she averted her gaze in guilt. However, Estella had taken her words seriously and nodded obediently. "I'll wait for you." Roxanne forced a smile. "Good girl. You're going to be late, so you should go inside with Archie and Benny." After saying that, she could not help but advise her to children, remember to take good care of her. Archie and Benny were confused after seeing their mother's attitude toward Estella. Archie and Benny were confused after seeing their mother's attitude toward Estella. Thus, they hesitated for a moment before nodding obediently. After seeing them entering the kindergarten, Roxanne stood up and nodded at Lucian, who was behind her, as a greeting. Then, she turned around and was about to leave. However, a large hand grabbed her wrist after she had just taken 2 steps. Chapter 218. "Mr. Farwell, is there anything I can help you with?" Roxanne halted in her tracks and turned around to look at Lucian as if he was just a stranger. Upon meeting her gaze, Lucian furrowed his eyebrows. The attitude Roxanne had now was as distant as the time when they first got divorced. It was the same attitude that had caused Lucian to perform unexpected acts. Back then, Lucian thought Roxanne would really disappear from his life if he did not attract her attention. As Lucian did not answer, Roxanne tugged her wrist back with a frown. If there's nothing much, please let go of me. I still need to go to work. Both their outstanding looks quickly garnered attention. After all, not only were they attractive, but the parents of the kindergarten were not ordinary people. Thus, most of them knew who Lucian was. Many of them had already turned around to look in their direction. Roxanne feared it would be too scandalous if they continued to be seen with each other for another second longer. If that happened, she would soon be facing a lot of trouble. Lucian finally snapped to his senses when he noticed her struggle while loosening the grip on her hands. He spoke with a complicated expression. After talking with Estella yesterday, I realized that her speedy recovery was mostly because of your efforts. Thus, it's only right for me to show you my appreciation. Not only was that an excuse to ask Roxanne to stay behind, but it was something he meant from the bottom of his heart after his experience the day before. At first, Lucian thought Roxanne was just someone to cheer Estella up by staying by her side. Thus, he did not expect Roxanne to bring such a significant impact on Estella. It must have taken Roxanne a great deal of effort to make Estella talk again. Upon hearing that, Roxanne replied blandly, "That's all right. You have helped me quite a lot recently. Besides, I've told you that we don't owe each other anything, so there's no need for that." After saying that, Roxanne nodded before making her way past him and into the car. "Perhaps you can see the gesture as I'm trying to get on your good side." Lucian started lowly. Roxanne halted her steps, unsure what he was trying to say. Looking at the woman standing beside her, Lucian pursed his lips indifferently. "If I remember correctly, you once said that the children are innocent and should not get involved in our matters. However, does this only apply to Torquay and Benny?" Upon hearing that, Roxanne turned around and met his gaze. "What do you mean?" Lucian raised an eyebrow. "You know that Essie likes you and would feel sad if she doesn't see you. However, you refused to meet her multiple times, knowing that this might cause her condition to worsen. Isn't Essie innocent in this matter? I don't mind if it's me you want to avoid, but the Reds no need to do the same thing on her as well." Roxanne was promptly taken aback when she heard that. Although she had considered if Estella would feel upset for not seeing her, Roxanne dismissed the thought as she had never seen herself as someone important. Besides, Lucian would definitely take good care of Estella. Besides, Lucian would pick up and drop off Estella every day. If Roxanne did not deliberately avoid them, there was a high chance she would bump into them. "Essie has been sad that she didn't get to see you. However, as her father, I admit I'm not on the best terms with you. Thus, what I can do is treat you to a meal to thank you for taking care of Essie, and also take this opportunity to ask you to spend more time with her." Lucian's tone was polite yet distant, leaving no room for argument. Although Roxanne did feel guilty toward Estella, she furrowed her eyebrows upon hearing Lucian's ending statement. "Perhaps you're too used to doing business, but let me tell you that not all matters can be solved with a meal or two. I'll head to work now if you have nothing else to say." Chapter 219. A faint scowl appeared on Lucian's face just when he wanted to speak. The sound of a ringtone interrupted the awkward atmosphere between them. Roxanne averted her gaze apathetically and took out her phone from her bag. When she glanced at the caller ID, she saw that it was Larry calling. That she secretly sighed with relief. Larry's phone call came to my rescue. After nodding toward Lucian, Roxanne picked up the phone and walked to her car. This time, Lucian did not try to stop her. Walking past Lucian, Roxanne could feel herself easing up. Meanwhile, Lucian recalled the caller ID on Roxanne's phone while staring at her retreating figure. If I remember correctly, that man even had a meal privately with Roxanne. They seemed to have had a good time too. I didn't expect them to be so close. At that realization, Lucian's expression abruptly darkened. Larry, is something the matter? After Roxanne picked up the phone, they exchanged pleasantries until she got into the car. Then, she took the initiative to ask about Larry's reason for calling. At the other end of the line, Larry replied with a chortle. Why are you acting so distant toward me? Can't I call you even if there's nothing much? Without Lucian by her side, Roxanne had loosened up quite a bit. Smilingly, she answered, of course, you can. However, I'm sure most people wouldn't call this early in the morning just to chat. Double quotes. It was not like Larry did not know about her schedule. After all, Roxanne would usually be sending the kids off to kindergarten or on the way to work at Thather. Thus, there was no way Larry would suddenly call without reason. Upon hearing that, Larry stopped the small talk and changed the topic. I called to arrange a time to meet, as I have something to give you. What time are you free? Is this afternoon okay? After pondering for a moment, Roxanne answered, I'm fine to meet up during lunch hour. Are you all right to meet near my research institute? Larry promptly agreed. After hanging up the call, Roxanne was confused about what Larry had said during the call. I wonder what he wants to give me. He's acting so secretive, too. It was afternoon when Roxanne wrapped up her work and walked out of the research facility. When she saw the GPS location sent by Larry, she saw he had picked a Canaan restaurant near her research institute. After packing up her things, she quickly headed over. By the time she arrived, Larry was already there, waiting for her. Roxanne sat at the seat opposite of him. My apologies, you must have been waiting for a long time. Larry smiled nonchalantly. I'm used to it. Anyway, you must be famished from working the entire morning, so I've already ordered for you. I hope the food suits your tastes. After saying that, he signaled the waiter to serve the dishes. After the dishes were served, the duo chatted while eating. You mentioned you wanted to give me something during the call. What is it? As Roxanne was hungry, she immediately dug into her food as soon as it was served. Only after listening to Larry talking for some time did she look up and ask. Larry took out an invitation card with a grin. There's a medical conference in Baldridge that many experts from the medical field will show up. Chapter 220. Roxanne put down her fork at the thought of being able to receive some guidance from those prominent figures. After taking the invitation card, she expressed her gratitude. Larry, thanks for being so thoughtful. I truly look forward to it. Her current image resembled a child who had received candy. Larry's eyes sparkled with happiness as he found it rare to see her being that eager. You're welcome. Previously, you left in a hurry after performing surgery on one of the elders in my family. Thus, I wasn't able to thank you properly. Every day, my elders will nag me to treat you to a meal as they felt very bad about it. Therefore, you can treat this as a token of gratitude. Roxanne was filled with anticipation about attending the medical conference. When she heard his comment, she nonchalantly smiled at him. I was in a hurry to pick up my kids. Besides, I just did what's within my capabilities. After that, she queried in concern, by the way, how is that elderly faring? I didn't have the chance to conduct another body checkup after the operation that day. Larry replied, he got transferred to the general ward after the surgery the day after. All he needs now is to recuperate. It's all thanks to you. Not daring to take any credit, Roxanne merely smiled and changed the topic. You're the one getting invited to this medical conference. Are you sure it will be fine if I tag along? Larry could be said to have achieved some accomplishments in the medical field, coupled with his family background. Those medical experts thought highly of him. Many people had even expressed their admiration for him publicly. As for herself, she was a nobody whose name might be unheard of by those experts. Roxanne was worried that her appearance would lower the standards of the conference. Larry couldn't help but feel amused after realizing the meaning behind her words. You had studied under Professor Lambert for so many years. Do you still see yourself as that same nobody in the past who just went overseas? Those experts might not have heard of your real name before, but they had long heard of your other alias, Janet. A flash of joy passed through Roxanne's eyes. Following that, the woman rubbed her nose as she giggled. She was so accustomed to being humble that she almost forgot that Janet, the other name she used, had some reputation internationally. In that case, I'll accept your offer. Roxanne chuckled as she put the invitation card inside her handbag. Larry nodded. It's supposed to be yours. I saw on the invitation card that the conference will take place tomorrow afternoon. What time should we set off? Roxanne asked, seeing how thrilled she was. The joy in Larry's eyes intensified. Tomorrow morning. Both of us can get some rest upon reaching. We will be able to mark it on time before the conference begins. Also, there will still be time for us to chat with the pioneers in the medical field after learning that she would have an opportunity to meet with the prominent figures in private. Roxanne's interest got piqued even further. She agreed without hesitation. Okay, I'll get the flight tickets. Larry didn't decline her suggestion over such a trivial matter and agreed with a smile. It was about time. However, the person opposite him was still in a state of excitement. Hence, Larry tapped on the table helplessly. You should eat more. I notice that you didn't eat much just now. Only then did Roxanne gradually pull back her thoughts. After glancing at the time, the woman casually took a couple more bites before she got up to leave. There's still work for me to do in the afternoon, so I'll return to the Research Institute first. I'll notify you after getting the plane tickets. Larry promptly agreed. Roxanne initially had mixed feelings after bumping into Lucian earlier that morning. However, those negative emotions diminished during lunch after she learned that she could partake in the conference. Despite spending the entire afternoon working, the smile on Roxanne's face didn't vanish even once.